That was fast.
That was fast. Yeah, you were telling me about during the break. You were telling me about the guards letting you in now that they're doing the COVID tests again. You know, right as you're leaving.
What's that?
Right as you're leaving, it's getting bad again here.
Well, who knows how bad it's going to get.
Yeah.
I think it's overreaction. That's what we end up with. We end up with huge overreaction. Don't sneeze. It was funny when Kathy and I were in Xi'an last week, and so we jumped into a taxi, and the hotel, I come to find out, is an hour taxi ride away. This guy was just, I sneezed, and I thought this guy was going to have a heart attack. You know, one sneeze means you must have COVID.
Oh, man. I walked into Starbucks today, and I never wear a mask, and they never give me a hard time about wearing a mask. And a lot of the people that are not wearing masks, Chinese, there's no problem. The Chinese guy walks in, he's wearing a mask from outside where there's no one that he's going to be giving anything to, right? As soon as he walks in the door, he has this uncontrollable urge to sneeze. So he pulled his mask down and sneezed it into the room, blew it into the room. Then he pulled his mask back up and got in line.
They haven't figured it out yet.
For those of you that haven't learned this technique, achoo.
Right.
And wait a second and let it absorb into the cotton in your towel, okay? Or if you have to cough, you can do the same thing. Wait, and then pull it down. And it's amazing how a lot of the Chinese people have watched me do that and are like, that's actually a good idea.
I'll tell you what, it's no surprise that one case turns to 130 that rapidly in this country, at least.
Yeah.
And like I said, I personally believe that this whole thing, they found 130 cases in Guangzhou. That was the last number I heard.
Yeah.
So 130 cases.
Let's just remind people of the date. It's June 23rd today, right? Or 4th?
Today's the 25th.
Oh, 25th. I'm sorry. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
June 25th, 2021.
Yeah.
So as of today,
I haven't heard the number in a while. I don't know if it's gone up or down, but I heard 130 cases. I don't know. All of Guangdong province is in a panic.
Right.
You can't travel within flights are being canceled.
I know. Yeah.
I got a message from my driver who ended up not picking me up at the airport coming back from Xi'an.
Because they wouldn't let him get you, or because he didn't want to get you?
He was busy doing something else.
Yeah.
But he sends me a message Friday night. We got back Friday night that says 2 people in Shenzhen airport tested positive for COVID, and you need to go back and take a test. I said, oh, okay, well, first of all, when did you become the COVID testing person for the Chinese government?
Right.
And why would I go back to the airport to be tested? And he said, I guess in certain areas of Shenzhen, everyone needs to be tested once a week.
Well, I've done 4.
Kathy says that's not true. Kathy says you don't need to go you need to be tested when the government says, or when that code that I showed the guy downstairs goes from green to yellow.
Right.
Now, I have no idea what that number is, and I took a picture of my code, my green code, the day I scanned it.
Right.
Which was the day we got back. It was the 18th. It had to have been Friday.
Yeah.
Because we scanned it at the Shenzhen airport.
Yeah.
And there's no green number on it. And I got out of the Shenzhen airport with that same code. I've been in and out of Metro. I've been in and out of the flower market.
For people
There's no green number down there.
Yeah, for people who don't know what we're talking about an app that's on everybody's phone here that we use for communication and business and payments and whatever. And it's a great app.
It is a great app.
But they also use it for tracking COVID. And we have a little app that will tell us the status that we're at. Have we been tested?
Right.
So green means you've been tested and you're negative. Yeah. Yeah, and I have one on mine, and you said you've got one on yours. You couldn't find it getting into the building, and then so they stopped you.
I can the difference between my green code and your green code is at the lower left-hand corner, you have a green number. At the lower left-hand corner, I don't have a number.
Right.
But mine is certainly dated today. So in other words, even though the last time I scanned was Friday,
right,
the app goes back and says, is this still good?
Right.
And it still comes up green.
Right.
And what that means is that I haven't traveled anywhere where I potentially could be infected.
Yeah.
And I guess the government monitors everywhere we go.
Do me a favor, take this cable and just kind of wrap it over the top of that, just so you're not getting any electrical buzz on that, just in case. There you go.
Okay.
So
yeah, and that's through WeChat. Believe it or not, we're being monitored every single place we go to.
Yeah.
And the guard wouldn't let me in because I didn't have that green number.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that green number means.
But it means you're not in Texas or Florida.
You're certainly not in Kansas anymore. What's funny is that we ended up showing the guard your code, picture of your code from my phone. And the one guard said to the other, "Yeah, see, that guy knew what we were looking for." That's what he said.
Exactly.
That guy knew what we were looking for. Yeah, glad you found it, man.
Yeah.
Don't come guard my life in any way.
Yeah. Well, let's change the subject for people that are getting bored with this, because like we are.
Bad.
So, we were talking a little bit during the break about the bar scene here. Like when we first came here, the way China's changed. I mean, I came like over 12 years ago. You're up at 19 years and going home. But when you first came here and I first came here, it was a totally different scene. Sheko had like one bar, you know?
Well, it had the snake pit. And I don't know if we've talked about that. The snake pit has been around for quite a long time, but it's certainly not. It's not a music bar. It's a social club.
Well, it was a business. It was like a business community bar. Like I know it started like with the oil people.
It did start with the oil people. It started with a lot of the UK.
Right.
So there's a lot of UK folks that started that up.
Right.
And you had to become a member.
Right.
You couldn't just walk in off the street and belly up to the bar and have a drink. Either had to be brought in by a member or you had to buy a membership. I pretty much did neither. I was neither brought in by anybody. John Strand on very few occasions.
And they had funky rules, like if you came in wearing a tie, they would cut your tie off and hang it on the wall. And
that
things
comes
like
from
that.
a restaurant in America that used to do that. But Ecstasy was the only place, really.
Yeah.
And Ecstasy was quite large, even at the time, for what it was.
And it was Bill Doubleday. Who started it.
Him and Maggie Chen.
Right. And it was on, it moved. It was originally a smaller place on what we called Chicken Street.
Or Bar Street.
Street, right. And you know more about it than me, because apparently you and other musicians were the first official paid band.
So, no, we were not, actually. There was a couple of acts that came before us. And I think Mind the Gap certainly was there. That's, I believe, where they started.
That's where they started, but I think you guys played there before they did.
I don't think so. I remember there was a guy, Justin, that had a band, and we were putting something together, and we were trying to get Friday nights, and
right.
But Bill paid almost nothing.
Sure.
And you got a couple of drinks.
And some drinks, yeah.
But it was more for the fun of it than anything else.
Yeah.
But I wasn't part of the first. The first band I think I was in here in China.
Yeah.
At Ecstasy was a band called Midlife Crisis.
Right.
And that was with Andrew and John Strand and Johnny Z. And it's a funny story how we got Johnny Z. There was a UK guy named Mike.
Yeah.
I think that was his name.
Johnny Z being a Chinese guitar player.
Yeah, and
there weren't a lot of
before,
Chinese
right.
rock and roll musicians at that time.
Believe
it or not,
there were not. They were all Filipino, but Mike and I and Andrew and John were going to start this band. We got a gig at Ecstasy for Friday night.
Right.
And Mike disappears from China. So we didn't know what we were going to do. We ended up with this Filipino guitarist. But eventually, I think not John Strand. Who was the other UK guitarist that passed away? John, really nice guy, and he kind of died in some freakish accident. Fell off a bridge but he was playing. There was just a lot of different personalities that were part of Midlife Crisis, and it was a lot of fun. And we used to play there, and then I guess Mind the Gap maybe came in after us. I it can almost hard for me to remember the timeline 19 years later.
Yeah, Mind the Gap being, I believe, the longest playing Filipino rock band.
Oh, they're still playing.
Yeah, they're playing.
They moved over to
down-
Macaulay's, and now they're in Enigma.
Yeah.
And they really played the song as it should be played. They really did. They reproduced the song almost exactly.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things I liked about them.
Yeah.
But again, time goes by, songs change. I'm still stuck in the.
Do you remember sort of the phenomena of we'd be listening to the songs being played or playing them ourselves with the Filipino bands, like something from Pink Floyd or something, and you couldn't help but to think, man, like not a lot of people have performed this in China like this.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like it could have been the first time for some of those songs, done that way.
I would have to say that the Mind the Gap song list is quite impressive. But again, they're playing songs now to a crowd that's much younger than I am. Yeah. 19 years ago, they were playing songs to my age group.
Right.
Sure. They're smart enough to play smart enough to play songs to the age group that's out there in the bars listening to them.
Right.
So they really, I think, were a much more impressive band when Paul and his wife, I think his name was Linda, ran them. You might not remember those days. Paul was a guy from England. He was a UK guy.
He married a Filipino.
He married a Filipino girl.
Singer.
Yeah. He basically put Mind the Gap together.
Her name was Janet.
Maybe her name is Janet.
Paul, if you're listening.
Yeah, sorry, Paul, if you're listening.
Her name was
Janet.
Check us. Leave it in the comments.
He had those guys really under strict.
Yeah, he held their passports.
He held their passports. He held their visas.
Yeah.
He was a strict taskmaster,
but
they were good because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were good musicians, but they really were better musicians in terms of song choices and what they were doing on stage.
Yeah.
Because he forced them to be. It was an interesting time.
Yeah, and maybe a lot of people don't know, like the whole Filipino scene out here. They were imported because they spoke English and sang in English and sang rock and roll songs and had a big repertoire and were really talented, like Vegas shows talented,
right?
And imported to China, and they would put them up with apartments and stuff and give them
one apartment for the whole band,
right? Yeah, give them a per diem and a paycheck and all that, and and their life was to
play music
and drink with the crowd and all that and entertain and.
They were a lot of fun,
and we had the privilege to play with them. And which was like playing. It was like it's kind of like you take any band out there and say, "Gee, it really would be great to get up on stage with them and do one of their songs." It's okay. You don't need the actual band,
for sure.
They'll replace them for you.
Although when I used to get up on stage, it was the same. It was the same song or two that I would sing. But it was fun, I mean, getting up on stage, I found, and playing music, even if you're not that good, which I'm not that good, it's quite addictive. It's quite an addictive thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't put you in the category of not that good because you were a good performer, and that's really important. Not just to like the Chinese audience, which appreciates a performance act. They appreciate somebody doing a rock and roll show.
Right.
They hadn't seen a lot of this, ever.
True.
It might have been the first kind of rock and roll shows they'd ever seen live.
True.
So I think from that standpoint, you definitely delivered. But none of us are.
Yeah, it's and actually I can go back and say actually the first band I was in was we didn't have a name. We didn't give ourselves a name. It was me, the guy that had brought me over to China, Greg Lucas, another guy who was Vietnamese but American, born out of Vietnam, named Dewey Wen, who played bass. We didn't really have a drummer. It was just kind of the three of us. We stumbled into a bar called something. What the hell was it called? Now Bar or just Now, something like that. and it was behind the old Renrenla on
one of those
Dongbin Lu.
one of those back streets. Yeah.
Yeah, and what this bar did was they would shuffle bands in and out.
Yeah.
So a band would come in, they'd play 2 or 3 songs, and they'd leave. Another band would come in, they'd play 2 or 3 songs, they'd leave. Another band would come. This happened from about 9 o'clock at night until about midnight.
Right.
And so at the time, me and Greg and Dewey were just kind of jamming in Greg's apartment.
Right.
And we asked this bar, could we come up and play a couple tunes? And the girl says, well, yeah, but we can't pay you more than 10 R&B each. It's like, money? I mean, we don't want any money.
Right.
We just don't want to have to pay you any money.
Yeah,
to go out. As long as this doesn't cost us anything. And so the next week we showed up with instruments and got up after this duo who I happen to like. They played a couple of Clapton tunes.
Right.
And we got up and we played whatever we played. I can't even remember what songs we played. And of course, at that time, the only American song anyone knew was Hotel California.
Right.
And so everyone's screaming out Hotel California. And the first words I learned how to speak in Chinese was Woman Busha Dao Hotel California.
Which means I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know Hotel California, so stop screaming. Yeah. But that was actually the first time I was on stage in China. And that was, God, I wish I could remember the name of the place. It was really just a nowhere bar that was set up quite nice, had good equipment inside, had a good stage inside, and
sure.
Greg followed one of these bands, this Filipino duet around. This is what they did. They went into a bar, played 2 songs, got out, went to the next bar, played 2 songs, got out, went to the next bar, played 2 songs, and he followed them around one night. He said it's absolutely exhausting what these guys do for the little amount of money that they make in each place.
Yeah, not much.
But pretty funny. Pretty funny.
Well, yeah, we got to be rock stars here.
Yeah, it was.
I always said, in Shekou, which is the small little suburb of Shenzhen, right? There's a lot of business people here, from oil people to computer programming, whatever. But I always used to say that in Shekou, they don't play golf. They play rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like that was sort of like, a business person would bring their electric guitar and like jump on stage. Guys like Big Bob, or
right, Big Bob, and this is where we met Mario. Right?
Yeah.
One of the original members of Nazareth.
Right. Of the original, yeah.
One of the original Nazareth.
Yeah.
James Masden, the original drummer from Boston.
Yeah.
So there's musicians kind of come and go in and out of Shekou.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place musically.
It's a friendly place, yeah.
It is.
It's changed a lot because of the whole, COVID thing and all that. But it's still happening,
It still does happen.
Yeah. So, I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the bar scene and the chicken bar scene. So I wonder if you might just describe what a chicken bar is.
Well,
not that you've ever been to one.
And this is I can only tell you what I've been told.
Yes.
But, and starting at any time, after the sun has gone down, Dracula's finally awake.
Right.
All the way until the sun's coming up the next day.
Right.
You can go down. You used to be able to go down to what we called Bar Street, or some people like I called it the dark side.
Yeah.
And these were just loaded with girls who would invite you in.
Yeah, most of which weren't originally from Shenzhen.
Most of them came to Shenzhen or came to Shekou, or were brought to Shekou.
Yeah, maybe were coming from a farm or
whatever. And most of them were beautiful, and they were there for one reason. They were there looking for a husband.
Yeah.
And guys were going in there for one reason, and it wasn't because they were looking for a wife.
Right.
But they were looking for a companion for, an hour or two or whatever. And these girls would allow themselves to be taken home.
What?
Believe it or not, I actually can say I don't believe I've ever taken one home. First of all, they wanted ridiculous money.
Yeah.
But it was a fun. It was. I mean, it just ran. I'm trying to think. Maybe there was 10 bars or 12 bars, something like that. That ran along Bar Street, and just went from bar to bar to bar to see what was going on in this one, to see what was going on in that one. And if you found a good time, and there were good people in there, they'd lock the door, and you just hang out.
You know, I can actually say that I did not participate in that scene, and I think it was mainly because I got exposed to that scene sort of in a way when I was living in Los Angeles. They had areas in Hollywood where there was like an Asian bar scene like that, and they were you'd go there and you would buy them expensive drinks and stuff, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So I just it came with me here. I was like, I'm not doing this scene. It's not my scene.
You had to know how. First of all, you had to know how to do it, because you could easily walk into one of those bars.
Yeah, you told me the story about your son. Yeah.
You get handed a 12,000 RMB bar tab.
Do you want to tell that story?
That's the story. You know, he went into the bar with a buddy of mine. Actually, this guy Greg.
Yeah.
And
your son who was visiting.
My son who was visiting. My son at the time was, oh Lord, I don't know, 20 or 21, something like that, maybe less than that, 18. And he, my buddy Greg took him out, and the next thing I know, my phone is ringing, and these guys are facing a 12,000 RMB bar tab. And he's trying to argue with the woman, and I basically went down there and had to straighten it out. And he said, I didn't buy all these drinks, and Greg didn't buy all these drinks. I bought one girl drinks. So we ended up, and the bartender, the owner, this woman knew they weren't going to pay 12,000 RMB. She's just trying to get as much as she could. I think I ended up giving her 2,000 or 3,000 RMB and saying, if that's not good enough, then let's call the police and let them come down and straighten this whole thing out.
Explain how somebody could spend 12,000.
Exactly. But you knew, you had to know the game.
Yeah.
And that was the game. And I would walk into one of these bars. I'd put 400 RMB on the bar, and I'd say, buy this girl a drink. No other girls am I buying drinks for.
Hopefully you pass that on to your son.
After that night, I certainly did. And when that 400 RMB is gone, that's it. There's no more money. So you can say you made drinks. She can say she drank drinks.
Yeah.
Those are on you.
Yeah.
Those aren't on me anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the game that got played. It was a fun time. It was like I said, it was the wild, wild west.
It was. When we first came here, it was the wild, wild west.
It really was. It was just what I call the guy playground.
Yeah.
It was just a ton of fun to be here. And, you had to get up the next day. You had to work the next day. But, as soon as the sun went down and the spirit of Dracula came out, we were just like kids in a candy store.
Yeah. Coming from a rock and roll gig,
Yeah, but if it wasn't we played rock and roll on the weekend, but this was, Tuesday. We're, I don't know, at Senior Frogs, and I look at my watch. It's 1:00 in the morning, and it's, hey, let's go down to Bar Street, see what's happening. And you just stick your head in sometimes, and then turn around and just walk home.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But these girls were quite forceful in trying to drag you in because.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like you'd be walking by, and they would literally grab you.
Yeah, they grab you, try to drag you into the bar,
dragging you in. Come on in,
for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's how they made their money. They made their money from dragging you in and saying you bought them all drinks.
Right.
And believe me, very little alcohol was ever poured into the glass of one of these girls. You were certainly given alcohol,
right?
But if you bought this girl a drink, there was very, very little alcohol that was poured into the glass. That's how they made their cash.
Yeah.
So
that was the Chicken Street,
and that ended when Xi took office. Xi Jinping he closed that all down.
Yeah, he really did.
Closed all that. He closed all the KTVs.
Yeah, I
down.
Heard like in Dongguan, where that used to be a really big.
It was a huge, huge industry, and again, you need to think about it not just from the point of the KTVs. Losing money, the girls, this was their employment, the before dinner industry, because typically you went out if you were going out with a group to KTV, you went out to dinner first.
Yeah.
The post KTV food industry, because there was a post KTV when you were done at KTV, you all went out to dinner again. You went out for something to eat.
Right.
The alcohol industry, the beer industry that that supplied KTV, all the suppliers of the KTV, the foods that were supplied, all those jobs disappeared.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a lot of money.
Yeah. I got exposed to that when we were in Jungmuto. Just, doing some factory tours. And then they took us out to a big KTV building. This was really fancy, and it had like a big runway stage and a dance area, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they had like a giant, what do you call it? The hologram dancing go-go girl. And then in all the terraces, there were KTV rooms, and they would bring the girls in. They sit with you and drink with you and all that.
That was typically their job, was to sit with you, drink with you, play dice if you like to play dice, help you play dice if you were bad at it.
They rub your arm and go, "Oh, you have hair on your arm."
Yeah, right.
It's like,
they're not used to something like this,
right?
But they were all in all the KTVs that I've been to. We had a customer that used to bring us out every week because that's just what they like to do. These girls were elegant. These girls were not prostitutes in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
These girls were elegant. They were stylish.
Yeah.
They conducted themselves with class.
Right.
That's why you went to
speak
KTV.
English, but
some of them did, but very
rare.
few.
Yeah,
Right.
very rare.
And you really didn't even want one. I mean, not that I wouldn't want to talk to these girls, but first of all, you limit yourself if you say, "Does anyone here speak English?"
Right.
Because one girl will raise her hand, and that might be the ugly one. Oh, you didn't want to, limit yourself that way. So, but KTV was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Japan has the same thing.
Yeah.
And they have the same idea, not necessarily with KTV, but
for people who don't know
bars,
what KTV is, that's karaoke.
Karaoke, yeah.
Karaoke,
I mean, that's what the K stands for.
Yeah.
And if you went to one that was big enough, they had a lot of English songs. John Nash, my boss at the time, he used to love to sing "Summer Nights" from Greece, and I always had to do the Olivia Newton-John part, so he could do the John Travolta part. That was a standard for us.
Yeah,
but I mean, they had a lot of English songs on the menu, and you'd basically, go through a menu and pick songs and take turns and pass the microphone around, and some people sang well, some people didn't. You just enjoyed it. It was just we had he wasn't a customer. He was the guy who did our blending of our material. When we stopped doing our own manufacturing, so when I first came here, we were manufacturing in Hong Kong in a little space. One 500-liter, what they call a tote. That's what we mixed in. And then we had to buy a second one because our business was growing. And then we met up with a guy who was a distributor who wanted to distribute our chemistry, who we cut a deal with that would do our toll manufacturing. Well, we would do the toll manufacturing, but we'd use his facility, and he was in China. So at one point, I was going into Hong Kong every day. I mean, my passport had 7 books in it. It was about yay thick before they finally said, "We're not putting any more books in this." But this guy, Jeff, loved KTV. And he took a particular liking to me. And so we'd get into KTV with my boss, John Nash, and Jeff, and some folks that worked with Jeff. There's a guy, Ben, who was his right-hand man. And, immediately, Jeff would sit me down, and out came the dice. Right. And we would just play dice until we both couldn't sit up straight anymore. And this is something that and I can't say I didn't enjoy it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's funny how KTV was a part of the music scene here in China.
I mean, not just a part of it. It was a huge part of the social scene. It was a huge part of the social scene.
Yeah.
It really was.
How Chinese people participated in music.
Yeah. Well, that's and then, there was a lot of Chinese music out there.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised that Xi Jinping closed it down.
Yeah.
But he was a guy who kind of stood on anti-corruption.
Yeah.
And that's was a big problem in China. The industry, especially the industrial corruption that took place. They used to say the best job you can have is to be the purchasing manager of any Chinese company. Because if you're the purchasing manager, you're getting paid by every single one of your suppliers.
You're the gate.
For sure.
Well, I want to get into another topic here that you might not want to. Yeah, you might. No. I mean, I know you want to talk about this. So,
what was the subject? You still haven't said the subject I don't want to talk about, but
it's music related.
Okay.
The circus scene.
Yeah, well,
the circus gigs.
So this is back in the day because I don't even think they're around anymore. I still stay in touch with Angel.
Yeah,
actually,
who was an agent who would book these for
one
us.
Of the agents, right? Yeah. She would basically.
I got mine through you, basically.
Yeah, she would call me and say, "There's a gig somewhere, Huizhou," and I'll tell a pretty funny story in a second.
Don't forget to.
But you would basically go.
What you used to call the bottle.
Oh yeah, right. The magic.
The magic bottle.
I would go. We'll talk about the magic bottle in a second. But she would say, "Can you round up 3 more players?
Yeah,
and make sure they're either dressed like this or she have shirts for us to wear."
And they couldn't be Asian.
No, they had to be foreign. And the whole idea was,
they had to be Westerners.
These places would be throwing a grand opening, like a new condo, place. People were coming in to look at floor plans and putting down payments on condos, and they wanted some foreign entertainment, or there was a New Year's Eve gig. There's just for whatever town that we were in. I can't remember what town we were in. And they just put on act after act after act. But I would go there, and half the time I wasn't even plugged. I was never playing. None of the people that
it's over a soundtrack.
It's over some kind of a backing track that Angel used to do lead singing. Yeah. Sometimes these people were actually playing. I mean, there were some times where we were actually playing a song.
Yeah, like when we did the grand opening of the Burger King at Coastal City Mall.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Where it was you and me. It was outside. We were each on one side of a dump tray station.
Right.
And then there were like the speakers over us, but there was no other sound system. It was just the internal speaker system for where they would play music. So we were saying that they couldn't hear us singing, so they gave us the headsets that they would use behind the counter. So we're singing through those, and you could hear it in the overhead speaker, but you could also hear them ordering.
Yeah,
burger, there was fries, large Coke.
Almost 100% of these things were just something to look back at and laugh.
Yeah.
And I told the story of one New Year's Eve. Or before New Year's Eve actually happened, an Angel called me. She said, "We have a gig." I can't remember. It was 6 hours away.
Right.
So whatever town it happened to be in, it was a 6-hour drive. And we piled in. We met in Futian, and we piled into this minivan where they had, I think there's 15, let me see, I think there's 15 or 18 seats, and there was like 25 people, and all of the gear, because I had a guitar with me, and everyone had some gear. They were basically just stuffing 100 pounds of shit into this 50-pound vehicle.
Right.
And we drive up, and it's a horrendous ride up there.
It's how far?
It's about 6 hours away. So we left about 6 in the morning, and we arrive at about 2 in the afternoon.
And how much does this pay?
1,000 RMB,
which is in about $150 US.
About $120, really, I think.
At the
something
time,
like that. Yeah.
Wow.
But the thing is, we get there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The gig doesn't start till 7. And I said, "Well, Angel, I mean, what do we do for the next 4 or 5 hours?" "Well, there's a KFC. We can sit in the KFC and drink coffee." So you can imagine that by 7 o'clock, I'm a little bit wired for sound.
Yeah.
This gig ends at midnight, and I'm in the last act with Angel, not really even playing a guitar, just behind a backing track that she's singing to.
Your agent is part of the act.
My agent is part of the act. We get back into the minivan, and now, not from 2:00 till, but now the driver needs to get gas.
Right.
And for those who don't know it, at midnight on New Year's Eve, every gas station, which is owned by the government, there's no privately owned or company owned gas stations. They're all owned by the China government.
Right, yeah.
Have to reset all of the pumps. And that takes about 4+ hours to do. So we pull into the gas station, and that's when they start the pump reset. So we're sitting in the gas station from about 12:05 to about 4:30 in the morning before we can get gas, before we can now drive 4 hours home. Sorry, 6 hours home.
Did you have the magic bottle with you?
I didn't have the magic bottle with me at that time.
Yeah. Explain what the magic bottle is.
So when we were playing these in the bars, when I was playing with you and playing with Steve Jones and playing with the other folks in the bars, well, for example, Ecstasy.
Yeah.
Ecstasy paid us, I think, about 400 RMB each.
Right.
And 2 drinks.
Right.
And I certainly wasn't going to spend my 400 RMB buying drinks back from Ecstasy.
Right, sure, yeah.
So I would take a water bottle and I would just fill it with vodka.
Yeah.
And this was something I called the magic bottle.
Yeah. That one is not filled
This
with
one
vodka.
is not the magic bottle. This one is not filled with vodka. It's filled with water. But I mean, I felt justified that that's fine. I mean, we had to do 3 sets.
Sure, yeah.
And those sets were 10 or 12 songs each. So, I mean, we're playing 30 songs, which will take a lot out of a person to begin with. First of all, it's hot. It's whether it's winter or summer, it's hot up on that stage. The lights are on you. You're performing. You're working for 400 RMB for that time. So let's say from 9 at night till 1 o'clock in the morning. What's that, 100 RMB an hour?
Yeah.
That I'm going to now give back to the bar to buy a third drink? I don't think so.
No.
So I always felt truly justified to just carry my own. I was never flagrant about it, or walked in with a bottle of vodka and said, don't worry, I'm going to drink out of this. Walked in with a bottle of water, asked for a glass of ice at the bar, or a glass of ice and a soda. Soda Bill would give you for free, or me at least. Yeah. And I had I had the magic bottle, and it basically kept me sane through 3 sets of music. Now
it was the right color.
Fortunately enough, I drank vodka, so it was the right color. Yeah. Now, as you know, I'm trying to learn how to play the dobro.
Yeah.
I can't take a sip of vodka.
Or anything else, or
nothing.
Nothing.
I can drink nothing. I can't. If I was going to drink, I would drink vodka. It's what I drink.
What do you find that's different?
I
between
can't
regular guitar and
between the guitar and the dobro.
No, that you can't drink, because I've seen you drink many times playing regular guitar. But what's the difference?
Have you seen me drink?
From the magic bottle,
right? Directly sometimes.
Yeah.
The dobro is just, I don't know how to play it yet. And so I'm learning it.
Okay. So you don't have muscle memory yet.
I don't have muscle memory.
You can't put your muscles to sleep with the magic bottle, or any drink.
I can't.
Vodka in any form.
I found that I've gone home from work, and I'll make a what for me now is a normal size cocktail, but back then, I'll pour a little vodka into a glass with some Coke or some Diet Coke, whatever. I drink that. Forget it. Can't do it. Can't get my hands to work together. With a guitar, sure, it's gotten to be muscle memory. I mean, I'm not playing a lot of F chords or B sharp minor 9th diminished chords when I play guitar.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely, to me, a little bit funny that if I touch alcohol, I know that I won't be playing dobro that night. I won't be practicing that night.
Yeah. It's going to be a new phase in your life, playing music where you're not drinking.
Yeah, until I get the muscle memory.
But one part of the muscle memory that you will not forget is
That's an
this.
easy one. Actually, it's funny. My brother just sent me a message. He said, you better be working that dobro because he's got us. Well, I mean, we can gig anytime. I'm going back in July. I guarantee July 19th is a Monday. July 19th is a Monday.
Yeah.
I guarantee before Saturday we'll be in a bar.
Right, which is interesting.
Or we'll be busking somewhere.
Yeah, you came to China. Let's kind of do a recap here. You came to China. You started with the gig during doing circuit boards.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you switched over to teaching.
That's correct.
And then all during that time you've been playing music. But then when you go home, you're actually strategizing to be playing music as soon as you get back. That's going to be your job.
I don't know how much money it'll kick in for me. I'm not sure whether will pay the bills. I have some IRAs that I've saved. But that's the game plan.
The plan, yeah.
The game plan is to just if we're not sleeping, we're playing music, and hopefully
so your brother will have those gigs for you, yeah.
But what he said, he says, because I said to him, I mean, when we start, I'm going to be playing guitar. I mean, you know that I can't play this dobro in public anywhere.
Well, if you need a banjo player,
you know what? For sure, you'd fit in. You know.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of banjo players, but he said November 4th we have a gig that's going to specifically require the dobro. So I guess it must be a bluegrass gig.
Yeah.
Right now, my brother's playing with 3 or 4 different bands. Most of the time, they're just busking out in the park. Yeah. They do some bar stuff, but I think before July is heavily into its 20s, I'll be out there playing. I'll probably have to play because I'm shipping my guitar back, so I won't get there quite when I get there. It's going to be about 6 weeks, but I have a guitar there.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was a story I wanted to tell. I can't remember what it was.
Music related or?
It was music related. I said I'll tell this funny story, but it wasn't the New Year's Eve gig. The New Year's Eve gig was just I was so angry sitting in that gas station, and I got home.
Yeah,
and
I remember this.
I don't even remember what time it was. But my wife, was not my ex-wife, was there. And I walked into the house, and I just looked at her, and I said, "Don't speak. Don't ask me a question. Don't tell me anything." And I grabbed a big glass, and I filled it with ice, and filled it with vodka, and splashed a little tomato juice or V8 over the top, and I drank that. And then I made a second one.
Yeah.
And I drank that.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, "I'm going to bed. We'll discuss this tomorrow."
And here you are telling the story.
And I'm telling the story.
Yeah. You'll tell it again.
I'm sure that I will. But there was a funny story. I just can't remember. I remember when Angel first called me. It was, do you remember Jim Walker, the UK guy?
I think, yeah.
Played the guitar. He was a relatively good guitar player. Yeah. Played the acoustic guitar. Always got dressed up in a shirt and tie and a jacket whenever he performed.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a pair of shorts and I'm waving that flag.
Yeah.
But Angel calls me up and she says, and she got my number through Jim Walker, and she said, "Do you want to do this gig?" And I said, "Well, just tell me the songs." Okay, one of the songs I remember was Madonna, La Isla, whatever freaking song Madonna sings. And I said, well, I mean, what key is it in? It's in the original key. Okay. I look it up and I'm thinking, there ain't no way I'm playing this song. I don't know first of all, I don't know the song because I don't listen to Madonna. I don't know the chord changes, and Angel ends up picking me up. And the whole way up there, I'm telling her, I can't do this. Angel, you don't understand. I cannot do this. She's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's like, I won't be fine. You're out of your mind. You're absolutely out of your mind. I said, I remember the story I want to tell. I'll tell in a second. And then we'll be done. Only to get up there to finally, she doesn't tell me this while I'm sweating for 2 hours driving up to the gig. Only when we get there, she's like, okay, just, there's going to be a backing track and I'm going to sing. Just make believe you're playing. Huh? Yeah, just make believe you're playing. You don't even have to plug your guitar in if you don't want. Oh, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so this was the story that I wanted to tell. They have a gig up in, I think it is in Huizhou somewhere.
Which is how far away from Sheko, where were you abiding?
Futian. Well, I wasn't living in Futian, but that was usually the starting place.
Yeah, okay, 45
by
minutes.
where the no, it's about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Futian?
Futian is 25 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Huizhou.
You were living in Futian.
No, I was living in Sheko. The meeting place was Futian.
Oh, and then you got to get there. Okay, got it. Okay.
So we walk into this hotel. I have no idea what the gig is about. I never really cared what the gigs were about. She told me to make sure I was wearing jeans and a cowboy-type shirt. And if I had a cowboy hat, that would be even better.
Right.
So we walk into the lobby, and there in the lobby is this 5-string ensemble. I'm talking dressed in black, 2 guys, 3 girls. The guys are wearing tuxedos, black tie. The girls are wearing long, black, flowing gowns. And there was a violinist and a cellist.
Yeah. Not a fiddle player.
Not a fiddle player.
A violinist.
So I'm thinking, this is cool. I stood there for a couple of minutes and watched them.
Right.
And I just figure must be playing in another room.
Yeah.
Right? So I said, so where am I setting up? And she goes over and drags a chair from this table and sets it right next to the cellist and says, that's your seat. And I looked at her and I said, I want to go home. I want to go home. And she said, no, it'll be fine. 5-string, tuxedoed, flowing gowns, and Dave in jeans and a cowboy shirt and a cowboy hat.
And why?
And
that's what's going through
and
your
a
head.
guitar.
Yeah.
And a guitar.
And why?
An
acoustic woody guitar.
An acoustic woody guitar that they're plugging in.
Right.
They're not.
No, you're playing with
keeping
them.
this unplugged.
Yeah.
And so the cello guy looks at me and this guy doesn't bat an eyelash. Seems to be normal to him. And I'm just kind of sitting there, and he takes his music stand and he shifts it over toward me. And so I can see what we're playing.
Yeah, you can read the music.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you read music.
And it's like Moonlight Sonata in E minor.
Right. And do you read music? No.
Not at all. I'm just learning how to read tab now.
Right. But you don't tell them that.
I'm so flabbergasted that I can't even speak. I have my guitar on my lap, volume's all the way down,
and a classical orchestra band behind you.
Right, and he's moving at the music stand, and I'm like moving with the music stand back to him.
Yeah, I won't need this.
Right.
I don't know what those little dots are with the lines.
and I'm just sitting there. I mean, beads of sweat are now coming down my face. And so they finished Moonlight Sonata, and he's flipping through the book. He says, "Oh, here's one that we can play together," and it's "Take Me Home, Country Roads." Yeah. Except they're playing "Take Me Home."
Oh, yeah.
Country Roads, and I'm trying to play the guitar behind this.
Yeah.
And first set, at least for me, the first set ends, and I walked up. It wasn't Angel, it was her boyfriend, John. And I said, "You guys don't owe me anything. Just bring me home."
Yeah.
John, who was really one of the nicest guys. He really just was just a nice guy.
Chinese?
No, he was Brazilian.
Okay.
And a musician, and a pretty good musician.
Yeah. Angel's Chinese, but yeah.
Yeah, Angel's Chinese. Yeah. And he, I'm sit down at the coffee bar. He puts his arm around my back and he says, "Don't let this bother you. You're doing fine." He says, "In fact, I have an idea." I said, "John, do you see what I'm sitting here next to. I'm sitting next to a cellist.
Yeah.
He said, I got an idea. Here's what we'll do. Let them play. They'll take a break, then you play.
Yeah.
And at that time, I really didn't have a problem kind of playing all by myself.
Sure, yeah.
Didn't bother me that much. Still doesn't bother me that much.
you
I
know
don't
how
like.
to, yeah.
I'm not
It's
big on.
it's folk music. It's
I'm just not. I'm not into playing all alone. And I've done a bunch of these circus gigs where I've had to actually play by myself. But I said, okay. I said that works for me. So they go back on. They do a set. They step off. I sit down and I played maybe 4 or 5, half a dozen songs. I can't remember, but just stuff that I do. Some Merle Haggard and.
How's it going over with the audience?
There's really not an audience. There's just kind of people walking in and out.
Oh, okay. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not like right. It's
Yeah.
it's just this is happening in the lobby of a hotel.
Yeah.
And then I get off and they come on and I come back and this whole thing finally ends. And this fiddle player, this girl, this violinist,
concert violinist,
unbelievable,
who reads music on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, and absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Comes up to me and she says, "You are really good." And I'm looking around to see who this chick's talking to. And I'm like, "You're talking to me?" I said, "You were here, right? You didn't like just walk in or something, did you?" And she said, "I'm serious." She said, "I can tell you really love the music that you play." I said, I actually do. And she said, "Let's play a song together." And I can't remember what song we played, but she turned the violin into a fiddle.
Yeah.
And she was like two-stepping.
Playing, country, yeah.
Yeah, playing, I don't know, maybe Rolling in My Sweet Baby's Arms or Salty Dog or something.
Sure, yeah.
I can't remember what song, but I said to her, "Where do you live?" Because we're all the way up in Wager. She said, "I live in Lohu." I said, "Can I have your phone number? Would you come down and and this is when we still had South Mountain Bluegrass."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think
that was with us? When we were playing, I was on banjo and...
I think it was around the same time.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you meant it was much earlier. Okay.
And maybe, I can't remember. South Mountain Bluegrass, it was a while ago.
Yeah, okay.
I said, "Would you consider coming down and jamming with us?" I think I said, "I'm part of this bluegrass thing." And
I think I remember. Did she come down and jam
she
with
didn't
us?
come down and jam with us.
She didn't jam, okay.
No, I sent her some messages, and I don't think I ever really called her. But she never returned. Maybe she might have returned one message, and she was busy that night. And I said, I'm sure we were doing Friday night gigs at Boathouse. I'm sure we were doing open mics at Boathouse, because I said to her, could you come down on a Friday night and just jam with us? I mean, we would just love.
Hey, why don't you just take... I know you want to wrap this up, because you got a chicken in the oven. But
I had.
Yeah. But why don't we just talk about the Boathouse, what that used to be like, because that was an anomaly, right? It used to be a smaller location, like one street over from here, not on the Bar Street drag.
No, it was on Wang Hai Lu, which was the Rose Garden.
Rose Garden, yeah.
It's underneath the Rose Garden.
Yeah, big like apartment, condominium complex.
Right.
Downstairs, which is a typical setup, right? And you'd have different stores and,
and
little restaurants.
It was a little tiny place.
And you and I started there because we just walked by and the owner's wife...
No, I was, at that time, I was playing at the office, which was about 2 doors down.
I was playing there with you. I'm telling you.
But then you stopped playing. You introduced me to Steve. I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes.
That you.
Steve and Eileen,
Steve and Eileen,
Steve was from the U.S. and
right.
Eileen was Chinese, and they had 2
wife.
kids, two sons.
Right.
And Steve was kind of using it to sell boats. A location,
right?
But it was a little restaurant. Yeah,
it was a little restaurant and a nice kitchen, and Steve knew his way around the kitchen.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'd walk by there, and it was always empty.
Empty, yeah.
I think once I saw John Strand eating.
It was Mario and I forgot the other guy used to hang out with him all the
Neil.
time. Neil and a group of people that had money and just would sit down and order, nice wines.
But I never really saw anyone in there. I mean, I saw John Strand.
Yeah.
And if John Strand was eating in there, then you knew one of 2 things was either it was for free or it was really cheap.
Yeah.
Because John Strand just never was a guy that ever had a lot of money in his
Yeah.
pocket. But I think I had the Taylor at that time,
Yeah.
and it had because of the
No,
weather.
no. You're skipping. I think you're jumping here.
Because
I could
you
be
introduced
wrong.
me to Steve as a guy who could help me get my guitar fixed, whichever guitar that was.
Are you talking about Steve Jones?
No, I'm talking about Steve Boathouse, Steve
Okay,
Smith.
I'm a little bit confused, but maybe you're right. Maybe it was around the same time.
Because I know at one point I was playing at the
Okay.
office by myself,
Yeah.
and you were trying to get me to play at the Boathouse.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so you had never really officially. I think what happened though, Dave, was one time we walked by there together, and I pointed it out to you, and you hadn't met Steve, the owner, yet, and maybe you said hello to Eileen or something, but that's all. And I just was telling you about it. That's what it was. Yeah.
But and this is for sure in my memory, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
Doesn't just because it's in my memory.
Right.
I had a guitar and I thought it was a Taylor and I had some issues with it. And you said this guy Steve, who owns the Boathouse, he's a guitar guy.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I said okay, and I walked in and I introduced myself, or maybe you introduced me to Steve, and I said I got this problem with the guitar. And it turns out that Steve's not really a guitar guy; he's a boat guy.
Yeah.
Nor did he. I don't even know if he knew Steve Jones at the time.
Yeah. Who is a guitar guy? Yeah.
Who was a guitar guy,
Yeah.
but we decided to play in there.
Yeah.
And Mario was part of that, and Neil was part of that.
Yeah.
Steve
The locals.
Jones really.
The locals. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve Jones was never really a part of it. The locals, Paul.
No. Yeah.
And we just started playing there on Friday nights, and it was just kind of an open mic sort of thing that we dominated. But if anyone else
It was
wanted
an
to get
open
up and
jam.
play, it was an open jam for sure.
But anybody could. Yeah.
Yeah, anyone could come up
Yeah.
and play, and that I mean,
And
that
anyone meant it could be some Chinese girl that didn't speak English very well and wanted to do some song and read it off of her phone and
Right.
just the lyrics, and we try to back her up.
but it really became a place where the local musicians went. It was the only place.
But local meant people from all over the world, and became that too. It became people from all over the world coming in. It was a little dot on the entire scene, and it became
quite a place to jam.
yeah.
It became the place to jam for a while.
Yeah, everybody in Czechia, all the Filipino musicians, all the club owners knew about the Boathouse.
Yeah.
We put it on the map, basically.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
So if you were newer in town, somebody would say, "Hey, you have been to the Boathouse, right? You got to check it out."
Yeah, I mean, I was in Hong Kong, and I had I don't know, I'm not sure what shirt I was wearing. I might have been an Ecstasy shirt, but he said, "Guy from walking the streets in Hong Kong." He says, "You're from Sheco, right?" And I said, "Yeah." You play at the Boathouse, right?
Yeah.
I said, "God dang, this is a small world."
It's like the Fillmore.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. You know Bill Graham. I said, "Well, I know Steve Smith."
Yeah.
Do you know the
the
Graham.
whiskey on Sunset Boulevard? No, I don't, but I know the Boathouse.
Yeah, I know the Boathouse.
Yeah.
But we really did, and so Walter, Walter, right?
Yes.
Walter has made a couple of movies.
Yeah. An older gentleman.
A good super guy.
Yeah,
I mean, super
nice guy, yeah.
dude.
He used to love that song "Red House" by. He'd
Hendrix.
always record that. Yeah, he'd always have the Filipino bands play that for him.
I was probably singing it as I
You
think
probably did.
Those were the two songs. I sang "Red House" and I sang that. Stevie Ray Vaughan song.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. We won't get into your appropriations.
My repertoire. But Walter just put out a movie. Just the screening of it was supposed to be at the Boathouse.
Oh, really?
I couldn't come here on Monday.
Oh, okay.
But because of COVID,
Oh,
he ended up taking it and just putting it on WeChat and Vimeo
okay.
format.
Okay.
And it's called Shenzhen Days and Shenzhen Nights. Sorry, it's called Nanshan Days and Nanshan Nights.
Okay. Does this go way back to the early days of like Mind the Gap and all that? That scene? Or
This is the thing: is it doesn't really. It should have just been called Nanshan Days, and here's a couple of clips from what's happening at night now.
Oh, now okay. So
And I mean, there's nothing you can do about
It's an
that
update.
because it was filmed in 2021.
Yeah.
But I mean, no mention of the snake pit, no mention of the boathouse, no mention of ecstasy, no real mention of anything in what I would consider Nanshan Nights.
Right.
He does a great job of kind of like
Nanshan being the district that we live in.
Right.
Yeah.
He does a good job of talking about Nanshan and its history, and dating back to however many hundreds of years ago, and takes you through the East Gate and takes you to the West Gate, and talks a lot, and then all of a sudden it's a flash to a band playing a song.
Yeah.
But no band I've ever seen. Oh, he actually has. Well, I don't know what they call it.
I'm taking it you're not giving this the 2 thumbs up.
Look, I love Walter, and he did something I certainly couldn't do in terms of making a film.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was an interesting. I found it to be a very interesting film. But in terms of dealing with Nanshan Nights, he didn't do a heck of. I'm in it.
Oh, okay.
I'm in it singing Country Roads.
Yeah.
And I actually am wearing, because I must have come straight from the school, because I'm wearing my school clothes. And it's just me and Steve Jones.
Not like Angus.
No.
Wearing your teacher clothes.
No, I'm wearing my teacher. I'm wearing my Sunday go to meeting clothes. But nothing about, and he's got Mind the Gap in Enigma.
Yeah.
And he's got them in a couple of, but I mean, no talk about, hey, this is Mind the Gap. They're playing in Enigma now. They were really the original music group, and nothing. He's got the Steve Jones, Bob Shennett, Andrew, and Paul.
Right.
It's playing in the boathouse.
Okay, yeah.
Got a couple of them.
Yeah.
But again,
in the new boathouse. Well, it's nice that that's been
boathouse.
Documented, because that's the new boathouse.
But I mean, nothing about the fact that it's the boathouse. He talks about history, and then cuts to a band playing a song.
Okay.
The song in its entirety.
Okay.
Would
have been more interesting to mention the locations.
I might have not done the song in its entirety. I might have done a minute of it or so, showing the players. He's got those 3 knuckleheads in Macaulay's that are playing now. I don't know, whoever they are, the Filipinos. And he's got, he had the good sense and the good taste to have me and Steve Jones playing. But again, I don't think I might not have titled it Nanshan Days and Nanshan Nights. I might have said, the history of Nanshan and some music from 2021. Really no mention of any history or any of the historical things that have happened musically. And there's some real historical things I think that have happened musically in this town, or in Sheko and Shenzhen.
I remember, Dave, watching you at the Rock and Roll Bar.
Yeah,
with Johnny C. And Andrew on bass, and
Strand.
John Strand on the drums.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you guys. So you were doing the song Revolution, right?
Very possibly.
Okay, and I remember asking you about that. I was saying, was this something that you could have done 10 years before that? And it's like, it would have been a little bit, you wouldn't really want somebody to know what the lyrics were or whatever, I
don't know that. First of all, I don't know that we were doing Revolution, but if we were, I understand. Yeah. I don't think that would have been a problem 10 years ago.
Maybe they wouldn't understand what the lyrics were.
Probably not. And Rock and Roll Bar was really a unique place for me to play music, because
that was a good show.
It was. I think that combination of people, and they wouldn't let me pick up my guitar. Those were the days when I wasn't even playing; I was just singing.
I think that was actually what made it good. It's not that you're not a good guitar player. It's just that there
was no need for it.
Yeah, you were actually the lead singer.
Yeah,
and you could get into the body movements of a lead singer.
But I never really did get it. I mean, I was no Ace Disgrace, that's for sure.
No, but you're,
But yeah, I mean, I interacted with the crowd and I sang, and I don't disagree with Andrew, as he said to me. He said, "There's no reason for you to be playing the guitar. Johnny's covering it. I got the bass."
Yeah.
And
you were
Strand,
the Joe Cocker.
Yeah, it was a Joe Cocker. Except I didn't have the cool movements, but and Strand was probably one of the best drummers I've ever played with. And I played with a number of drummers.
Self-described as just like a workhorse, sort of simple player.
He's simple.
He
you know what?
compare
He learned
himself
the
to like
songs.
Ringo,
Yeah.
That's real simple.
Yeah.
Not flashy. Wouldn't twirl the sticks, throw them in the air.
No. But he really did a great job.
Kept the beat. Yeah.
Keeping the beat.
Yeah.
He really did what a drummer, and they say you shouldn't consciously hear a drummer, right? The drummer should be there, but you shouldn't constantly hear him. You shouldn't be out in front of everything.
Yeah.
And that's what John Strand really was. He was just a consummate drummer. This was the right instrument for him.
Yeah.
And until I was standing in front of him one time.
Yeah.
And he said, "Dave, can you move? You're standing right in front of me." It's like, am I blocking your view of them or their view of you? And he basically said both.
Yeah. Well, you
it was the wrong instrument for him if he wanted to be front and center on the stage.
Right.
It was the right instrument for him if he wanted to be a musician.
Right. But I think what I was kind of getting at was like, you were the lead singer of that band, right? You weren't going to really find another situation like that, probably in all of Shenzhen. It probably might have been difficult in all of China to find that, where like you're like this sort of, front man singing in a rock and roll band like that, doing this really cool repertoire. It was all really
I think our repertoire
great,
was
classic.
Great.
Yeah, it
was all classic, great rock and roll, a lot of Hendrix, Beatles, and Skinner we covered. I mean, we covered everything from a rock and roll standpoint that soothed my soul.
Right.
That's something that the guys who are playing in the Boathouse now, that when I was part of them, that they just couldn't do. They covered some things that I enjoyed, but not the. This is one of the reasons I'm going back to the States. Is that
it's over.
The music there, the music for me here is over.
Yeah,
and that's such a huge part of my life. And I mean, I love the heck out of Kathy. I really do. She's a great woman.
Your current,
my current girlfriend.
Yeah.
She don't get it. And you know what?
You're saying she doesn't get the music.
She doesn't get the music.
Okay.
I mean, she can listen to it, and I brought her. We saw Dylan play in Hong Kong. There was a very cool. I don't know if you ever got to it. 3 months ago, maybe. There was a great Dylan retrospective at this Nowheresville Museum somewhere in Shenzhen. I'm not exactly sure where it is. But it was a very, very cool retrospective of Dylan's work, a lot of his paintings, a lot of his songs, I think, written in his handwriting, some good videos, some good pictures. Anyway.
Is that where you took that picture?
Yeah.
I'll put it up. I'll put it up in the when I
picture
edit
of me
this.
with my hands in my pockets.
Yeah, when I edit this, I'll pop it in so people can see what we're talking
behind
about.
Dylan. Yeah, that's where we took the picture.
Okay.
But the point I was making was that, and my brother made this clear to me, and my son made it clear to me, and I'm dealing with it now. The music for me in Shenzhen is over, and music is such a huge part of my life. Kathy likes listening to music, but she doesn't get it. She doesn't understand it, and maybe this is too much of it. I don't know. We played very little, if any, Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Even when I was playing in rock and roll bar, and that was music that was soothing my soul.
Yeah. So you're going to take this home with you, I'm sure, because I've been doing a little bit of life review of my time in China, because I know when I'll go back soon and I won't come back to China, but I got to do things here, and so did you, where you got to be part of, like, say, a rock and roll show, right? And you probably noticed this, that you were doing things that you knew that the audience loved. Right. They were enjoying this rock and roll show that you were performing for them. Right. And for that reason, you kind of felt like a rock star. It wasn't really about you. It was about the show.
It's completely, this is what I said to you earlier. It's completely addictive.
Yeah.
This is what my son is finally understanding it. My older son just got a guitar.
Yeah.
When I say just, let's say within the last year. Never played a musical instrument. Of course, was offered piano lessons when he was growing up. Decided he didn't want to learn any musical instrument. Now, he's been taking some guitar lessons. He bought himself a Washburn. He's got a real pretty guitar. Played it in front of people for the first time. And he said, I can imagine what shooting heroin is like. Because that, to me, when I did it the first time, when I played music in front of other people, and I'm not just talking about sitting around playing music. I was in California. I was in Oregon. And I was part of this thing called the Bozo Brothers. And they were just a group of people from the PCB industry that got together twice a year from all around America. Mostly were West Coasters. But I would fly in from the East Coast and would basically spend a weekend jamming together.
Yeah.
And I mean, starting on Friday and ending on Sunday. I have it's gone now, but I left one of these things with a knot in my arm that was about 1.5 inches high. Yeah. Just from playing. Actually, it must have been this arm. Yeah. Just from playing. But we went to this thing called the Sunfish Festival. We got up on stage. A handful of us, not all. There was, I don't know, 15 or 20 Bozo Brothers.
And this is in what town?
This is in Oregon.
Oregon, okay.
And we went to the Sunfish Festival, and we got up and we did 2 tunes in front of a crowd of people that were applauding.
Right.
And I was just like, this is amazing. I want to only do this from now on. Yeah. I don't want to do anything else. Yeah. But once you play in front of people, once you play with other people, it becomes an addiction what's happened at the Bonehouse, what's happened with Steve Jones and that group of people that I was playing music with every single week. And I gave them up. They didn't give me up. I basically said, I'm through with playing the same 15 songs every single week. I tried to get a rehearsal going on Thursdays. Steve Jones showed up a couple times. Darren was my biggest supporter. Yeah. And I'm not even sure if Darren is still out there playing or not. I was told earlier that the Snake Pit is pretty much empty.
Yeah. It's not the same scene.
It's not. And you know, hey, we can go down there tonight and you'll see, I don't know if they call themselves the 88 or 88 or whatever the name of this group is, but it's Steve Jones and Andrew and Bob Shennett, and Paul may still be part of it. Yeah. I don't know.
Same songs.
Yeah,
regimented.
Over and over and over.
Don't make a mistake. Don't drift away from the way it's done.
Let me tell you something. We were doing Rock This Town.
Yeah. Stray Cats.
Yeah. And I mean, we were nailing it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. The audience is loving it.
Audience was going nuts for it.
Yeah.
But there was a question whether or not this C went into a C seventh.
Right.
Or not. And I can't remember what side of the coin I fell out on. But this simple point, whether it goes into a C seventh or doesn't really matter. The seventh.
It doesn't matter. No.
The seventh might just add a little fun twist to it.
Especially if somebody else can cover the seventh for you.
I can play the seventh.
Whoever, yeah. It doesn't have to be.
I was playing the seventh.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, yeah.
Steve Jones basically said, if we're not going to play it right, we're not going to play it. And that was the end of the song.
Right.
And that was kind of the nosedive that I took off the cliff and just said, I'm you know what? Yeah,
I remember I would be playing at Ecstasy, and I'm playing like with it's like 3:00 in the morning, and it's like that's when the jams would happen, right?
Yeah, right. That's the magic time.
The Filipinos in their own places would be their own club would be closing, and then they would go over to another club to drink and play music and jam with the bands that are still playing. It would all end up at Enigma like till 4 a.m, or till the sun came up, right? And I remember playing and jamming with them, and it's Jephthah, who is the reincarnation of Jimi Hendrix. It was like Larry. It was like all these great guitar players that had all played, and I'm playing on stage, and I'm doing some Angus Young thing, just it's not a hard song, but I'm like throwing myself on the floor and all that. And somebody comes over to me.
Stories.
Yeah, somebody comes over to me in the audience and says, like, after all these, I mean, like, masterful guitar players. Larry, we call him Yoda. That's his nickname. You know what I mean? He comes to me and says, "You are my favorite guitar player tonight."
Yeah, and just to say a couple of things about that. That's the magic time.
Yeah.
You know what?
It was the magic time here.
Right. But I mean, that 4 a.m.
Yeah.
When I used to go out to the West Coast and jam with these guys, Bozo Brothers.
Yeah.
So here you have 12 guitarists, 1 bass player, 1 keyboard player, 1 guy who played the sax or the trumpet, you know. But you look around this room and 15 guys in a circle and 12 hands in unison moving up and down. But so you arrived sometime on a Friday and your flight home was sometime on a Sunday. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, with those, me and with 1 or 2 other guys, whether they were the bass player and the guitar, that was just like the magic time. And people would wander in, wake up, come in, grab a guitar for a song or 2 or 3, go back to bed. I know I seem to always be awake during this time, but to me that's magic time. When there's nothing planned, it's just a jam. You're just hanging out. You're hanging out for the music.
Yeah.
That's magical. That's absolutely a magical part of the night. And also what happened in Shekel, that was magical. It's gone. It seems to be gone.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about it though, because it was a very special time, and we were blessed to be able to be through it.
Yeah, I mean, if I came to China now, I'd be bummed with the music scene.
Yeah,
I mean, I might go down to Boathouse and watch those guys, and maybe play a couple tunes with them.
Yeah,
to me, they just don't possess the attraction anymore.
Yeah. And we were also really blessed to be part of that the Filipino backup scene here. I mean, they were really the main bands, but they were backing us up.
Yeah,
and making us
not for me so much. I mean,
because
for me
you had
was
your own bands. Yeah.
Well, it was. But
you could jump on stage anytime with a Filipino band, and they're going to cover it.
If Mind the Gap was playing and I walked in, they would basically be trying to
bring it up. Yeah.
Some of the time I got up, some of the time I didn't.
Yeah.
It just depended on how I felt. I didn't feel like I needed to. There's some people who need to get up.
Yeah.
But it was. You're right. It happened, and I don't think any circumstances could have happened the way it did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Except how it happened.
Yeah.
And it stopped. Now it's kind of stopped happening.
Yeah. Got to enjoy it.
I got to enjoy it, and it's again, it's part of the reason. If I was still part of that scene, I don't think I would go home. I think I would stay part of that scene.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I kind of took myself out of that scene. And it's just kind of a shame that Darren was such a short part of it. He's really a great guy, and he's a great musician. He's a lot of fun to play music with.
What's his last name? Darren?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I can tell you that Andrew saw him playing with the bass in his hand, and Andrew was not going to let that stand. I'm serious. I mean, Andrew basically walked away, and it was me, Steve Jones, Paul, and Darren played the bass.
Yeah.
And Andrew must have walked by one time and saw Darren with the bass in his hand and ran home as fast as he could and brought his bass. We were down at Jack's Bar, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Andrew was back and plugged in and louder than ever.
Yeah. The scene has changed here.
It's just not.
Well, we can start wrapping this up. Probably.
Yeah, I think
I'm really glad that we actually thoroughly covered the music scene here.
It's one of the more important.
That's how I met you. That's actually how I met you.
It's how I met a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people I wouldn't know if it weren't. I probably wouldn't even know Steve Smith. There was really no reason for me to walk into the Boathouse when no one was ever in there. We brought people there with the music, and I have this great picture. I can send it to you because a lot of times we never even went inside. I mean, there were not.
We
there were
jams
a number
outside.
of nights where we just sat outside and jammed.
Yeah, and
there
people would stop and start watching as you were just sitting at a table.
And there were a number of nights where there was 12 of us sitting around the table passing around a single guitar.
Yeah,
just passing it around.
Yeah,
I have some pictures of that. That's to me, that's just
priceless.
12 people kind of involved in it, but one guitar getting passed around, and I think my picture has Mark with a banjo in his hands.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from him in a while. I got to send him a message. He's somewhere up the Pacific Trail. I don't know how far.
He should be done already.
No, are you kidding me? It's at least a 2.5 month.
Oh, okay. But I thought
he's going from Mexico right to the Canadian border.
To Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing the whole thing.
Okay.
And the last I heard was a couple weeks ago, and I think Dan said he was about halfway.
Yeah.
Dan, he sent some pictures on WeChat, and Dan happened to know the town he was in. Yeah, that's about it. That's my time in, as Dan calls me, I'm a short timer.
It's June 25th now, and so your flight is leaving
19th?
July 19th, and you're out of here. So I'm glad we got to do this. I made a point of making sure you were one of my first guests. You're actually my second guest on this podcast, which is going to be huge.
Yeah, I'm expecting good things. I'm expecting big things. So
you never know.
Don't disappoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, keep me. I don't know where you're posting these. My brother wanted to take a look
probably
at this.
on YouTube, and then maybe on some other podcasts.
Let me know. Send me the YouTube. I'm going to keep my WeChat open for as long as I can.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything I need to do on WeChat that costs me money once I'm in America.
Yeah.
So keeping the WeChat open, WeChat to WeChat is free, right?
Yeah, sure.
So
I communicate with quite a few people in the U.S.
Yeah, I talked to my son on it, and I talked to my dad on it. So
yeah.
I don't see a reason why I would have to close it down unless I open up another WeChat. Well, if I open up another WeChat account, it would be on a different phone.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't know each other.
Right.
I would hope, although my email would be the same.
Yeah, just be careful when you're setting up your WeChat. For anybody out there listening in the U.S., watch a YouTube video on setting up a new account, because if you screw it up, it's a fatal error and you won't be able to set it up. There's a certain way you have to do it. Certain settings on your phone so you can retrieve the call that's going to send you the code and all that. Yeah. Yeah,
I have to see whether I can have one WeChat on this phone and a different WeChat on whatever phone. I mean, when I get back to the U.S., this has got to be replaced.
Right.
But I'll replace it with something that'll have this SIM card in it, I would think, and then an eSIM. I'll have to see.
All right.
I know nothing about electronics. I mean, when I turn on my computer, if it doesn't go on, I'm flipped out. That's as much as I know about electronics.
Well,
and I know how to send a WeChat. I can buy things. I tried to buy something the other day.
On WeChat?
With cash.
You mean, with cash, yeah.
That was a mistake.
Yeah.
They don't take cash.
Yeah.
I said, what if I don't have a WeChat account? Well, then you don't buy here.
Yeah.
It literally don't take cash.
Mark of the beast. Yeah.
Mark of the beast, man.
They got you.
They do. All right, I'll sign off.
Okay.
I'm going to find out why I don't have a green number on the bottom of my code. I'm going to find that out. That's going to be a question that gets answered tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for being on my podcast.
It was fun.
All right.
Wave that flag.
We'll call
it wide and high.
Yeah. We'll call it a wrap.
All right, cool.